2 Corinthians 5. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, an house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house which is from heaven, if so be that being clothed we shall not be found naked. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. Now he that hath wrought us for the selfsame thing is God, who also hath given unto us the earnest of the Spirit. Therefore we are always confident, knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body, and to be present with the Lord. Wherefore we labour that, whether present or absent, we may be accepted of him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that every one may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. Knowing therefore the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. But we are made manifest unto God, and I trust also are made manifest in your consciences. For we commend not ourselves again unto you, but give you occasion to glory on our behalf, that ye may have somewhat to answer them which glory in appearance and not in heart. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to God, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. For the love of Christ constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one die for all, then we're all dead, and that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. Wherefore, henceforth know we no man after the flesh, yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. All things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And all things are of God, who hath reconciled us to himself by Jesus Christ, and hath given to us the ministry of reconciliation, to wit, that God was in Christ, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their trespasses unto them, and hath committed unto us the word of reconciliation. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God did beseech you by us. We pray you in Christ's stead, be ye reconciled to God. For he hath made him to be sin for us, who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him.
Good evening. It would be Tuesday, August 26th, 2014. This is your host, Mike Callahan, and this is the Watchman News. We got a lot of news again tonight. Had quite a bit last night, and we're going to keep on with that. We've also got an episode of Radioactive Reality for you. Always good to have that. And we'll start out with some suspicious observers. I think I'm better at talking today than I was yesterday, but I might be proving myself wrong. Anyway, let's go ahead and start out with suspicious observers. The link is down in the About tab as always, and we'll see what the sun's doing today.
Good morning, folks. 4 days ago, the central sunspot began flashing low-level C flares and popping minor ejecta. We expected a weak interplanetary shockwave impact today, and there it is in the solar wind. Density, speed, and plasma temperature in orange, yellow, and green. It was a very weak impact. However, that sunspot came alive as it turned away from our planet, picking up the M flares where the incoming spots left off. Now, it didn't match the M5.9 we saw yesterday, but it certainly gets one's attention. Using different wavelengths of the Solar Dynamics Observatory allows us to see just how violent these eruptions can be and the breadth of the different types of ejecta. As we often see with eruptions on the departing limb, protons were surged along the interplanetary magnetic fields and arrived at Earth's polar regions within minutes. Nowhere near radiation storm levels, though. Shocker, I'm going to disagree with NASA and NOAA, as both their endless spirals show the primary eruption from those flares to be missing Earth. It's like they hate their own satellites. Look at this a couple times. Forget the second eruption, which will indeed miss Earth, but look north and south of center. The plasma surged at those angles means it is also surged behind the central blocking disk that cuts the sun's glare and lets us see the plasma. If it's expanding out, cutting right through that central disk, we're likely to get at least a glancing blow, even without factoring in the Earth's rotation is sending us to the right from this vantage point. I expect some form of minor to moderate impact. More flaring is not out of the question, as the departing spot has a delta class with positive and negative mixing well down there at the bottom of the grouping. The trailing northern sunspots want to mix magnetically, but they're just too spread and small. It does retain its gamma class, though. Big dogs down south are content to sit quietly, beta or even alpha class, depending on how you judge the trailing negative dots. The dark patch coming in will be just as serious a concern for space weather. That coronal hole is about to be geo-effective, and the force on ISWA shows a tremendous push to that opening. Neither of those dudes is me, but that thing behind him is mine. We arrived in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada yesterday to a very happy welcome.
Summarize the sciences of the sun, space weather, and its electromagnetic effects on our planet. This mobile observatory is just another way for him to share the sciences. Well, we've had people that have been supporting us for a little more than 3 years. I work with scientists all across the country. There's a lot of on-site reporting and studies that can be done, and the only real way to do that, meet the people, is to get out on the road and get my hands in the dirt, so to speak.
Really enjoyed our talks at the meet and greet there. We're heading to Edmonton today. The rest of the Canadian tour is posted on observatoryproject.com and on the Facebook page. It includes Alliance, Calgary, Kamloops, and hopefully Vancouver. One place I will not be going is 67P. That's Rosetta's business, and the potential landing sites have been chosen. More in the link below. Also linked is a story about the coldest August in 100 years for parts of the UK, just as they broke record highs 500 miles to the east. Right now the storm zones are in a bit of disarray with a couple macro and micro flows at play. Got to check your local forecasts. Cristobal, churning in the Atlantic, luckily slated to miss everything except probably Europe next week. A more interesting story is off the Mexican coastline, where Maria is a powerful hurricane that won't make landfall, but she doesn't have to. Look at the moisture sent aloft even up across the mountains and into the U.S. Southwest. The flow is actually connected 2,000 miles away to the main Canadian low. We do have a convergence in the central states as well. Combined with the shear, it makes for the flash flood warnings tonight. You can see the areas of convergence pretty easily here. They will direct tonight's storm warnings down under. We've got the world storm alerts, some global conditions, and shots of our star to close. It's 6:40 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:40 a.m. Mountain Time. That's the news. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe, everyone.
And that was Suspicious Observers. Got a lot of news for you tonight. A lot of news. We're going to cover everything from tinfoil hat stuff to a little bit about some new information released about the Michael Brown shooting. We're going to be covering Ebola, ISIS, Pentagon, all kinds of good stuff. So before we get started with the news, let me go ahead and get the radioactive reality out of the way for this week. And we'll see any changes in Fukushima, as if, huh?
May 6th of the 8th, 2014, day number 1,264. This is your radioactive reality. I brought out the dolphin sculpture I did a long time ago to celebrate the tide pool project, which I'm trying to get going. Of course, I'll provide a link below. If you live on or near the coast, and pretty much any coast around the world, let's just go ahead and take a look at everybody. That would be, I think, a great idea for a YouTube community. And again, I will attach a link below if you want to find out what the tide pool project is and how you can help me out. I'm not asking for money. Let's get started. Any news? Unusual, troubling news about 1% of sockeye salmon coming from U.S. waters from Pacific normally 50 times higher, lowest rate ever recorded. Had expected best numbers ever. Scientist, quote, warm blob off the west coast may be to blame. They're saying they changed their migration routes instead of disappeared. Chinook salmon numbers are also low. So again, here we go. Big mystery on the Pacific Ocean. Official wept at Prime Minister's office. Quote, I'm sorry, we tried, but we are in a situation beyond our control at Fukushima. Hours later, people's blood ran cold. Huge hole suspected to have opened up in number 2 reactor. Now, all this took place on the 14th of March 2011. 3.5 years later, the truth is still leaking out from those early days. We have been dealing with this every moment of every day. 1,264 and counting. Nuclear engineer, studies show multiple fuel cores ejected from Fukushima reactors. No mention of MOX fuel, that's the plutonium-laced uranium fuel rods where they took old dirty nuclear warheads, ground them up, add them in with uranium, so they're 200 times more radioactive than normal fuel cells. Anyway, studies show multiple fuel cores ejected from Fukushima reactors. I thought so too. It was one of my big concerns. Radiation expert, hot particles of uranium and plutonium fuels detected nearly 300 miles away. Now, we've had reports where it's gone into aerosol form, so it's gone into these little bitty buckyballs or these little bitty granules, so small they can float on a piece of dust, carried up into the winds and around the northern hemisphere. Every moment of every day, we play the plutonium lottery. LA Times, horrific comedy at U.S. nuclear site. Mounds of radioactive white foam laced with plutonium. They're talking about WIP here. Spewed out. Government failed to do any radiation tests when released, peaked after major leak. Experts quote, risk of additional eruptions is real. And there's a video attached to that. Of course, here we go with the round and round at the website. Radioactive white foam. U.S. official, there were orders not to get within 230 miles of Fukushima Daiichi. Potassium iodine given to all defense personnel and families within 200 miles of the plant. Over 1,100 kinds of radioactive materials detected. And again, this was in the early days. And the truth just keeps sneaking out, doesn't it? Don't worry, folks. They have everything completely under control. Scientists, massive spikes in radioactivity are being hidden from the public. Check this out. Radiation doses around nuclear reactors increase exponentially. It is a major worry, very, very important. Something must be done. And again, when they open up these nuclear reactors, we're talking every operating nuclear reactor in the planet, okay? And they say they release about, on average, about so much radiation every year as part of Operation Thing. Well, when they're reloading the fuel and they open up the containment and all these gases releases for a 1 to 2 day period, the exposure limits can go from anywhere from 20 to 100 times. And the public isn't warned about it. And they don't really care about the weather when they do it. Very, very interesting read. If you live downwind from a nuclear power plant, be advised. You get spikes at least once a year when they load in the new fuel. Every time they pop that container, it gets out. They don't want to tell you that. The seriousness of the current situation of Fukushima can't be understated. Unmitigated radiation is pouring into the Pacific Ocean, has been, and will continue to be for millennia and millennia. A millennia of millennias. They don't know how to stop the radioactive leaks. We'll never know how to stop this. How do you stop 3 full meltdowns on very, very, very large reactors? What, 3 times Chernobyl? Not to mention the MOX fuel that have burnt through containment down into the environment and that are leaching directly into the Pacific Ocean. And all we get is a circus because they can't really do anything about it. And nobody wants to accept liability for it. Scientist holds press conference in Tokyo. Urgent need to share new developments from Fukushima. Very, very striking results show radiation injury to whole ecosystem. Significant implications for Japan. And I've said this many times. Japan is now a huge radioactive tea bag leaking directly into the Pacific Ocean. And it's not just Fukushima. It's the rivers. It's the runoff. It's the open incinerator burning. The insanity continues. Time magazine, doctor links recent outbreaks of mysterious rashes to Fukushima. Cancer specialists. There's so much societal pressure to not even mention the word radiation. Nobody wants to hear it because too many jobs are dependent on it. It's all about the money. They're going to kill everybody for a few jobs. Huge number of cancers already. Government actively engaged in safety propaganda. They're going to blame everything but the nuclear industry. They have been for decades. Top U.S. nuclear officials visit Fukushima. Quote, the pain they've inflicted, innocent lives impacted forever, children. Sick to my stomach, as if I were in a science fiction movie. Quote, very sobering. We raised the standard of living for millions. Without us, heart surgery is impossible. And again, they're covering up this medical stuff. We're still dealing with Chernobyl, folks. Look into what's going on at Chernobyl right now. We got to put a sarcophagus over a sarcophagus over a sarcophagus over a sarcophagus. And this one's already decades behind and the old one's cracked. Oh yeah, nuclear energy's safe. Carbon free as they tear down mountains and these monster trucks. How clean is nuclear energy? It's a crime against humanity, if you ask me personally. Shut them down. Shut every single one of them down. Scientists to use detectors deep underground to look for Fukushima fuel. It's believed to have cooled down. They believe it. But no one can check. Officials, we don't know if water is covering fuel. There's a river pouring on it. Water must be circling around the fuel or it will melt again. It's never stopped. Finally tonight I'm going to take you over to Fukushima Diary. I'm going to mention one story off this site just to drive a point home. If you don't know Fukushima Diary, I highly recommend you check this website out. Very informative. Keep you up to speed. Fukushima plant having discharged 25,000 tons of bypass contaminated water. Contaminated groundwater didn't decrease. So their big plan to pump it off to the side to help reduce the groundwater around these buildings, which are unstable, has failed. Just like everything else. Yay, Yakuza. Yay, budget cuts. Yay, homeless workers. Can you see the insanity in all this? Can you see the insanity? Well, that's about all I got for you today, of course. If I missed anything, please let me know. Attach your comments or videos below. Enjoy while you can, everybody. Thanks.
Big thanks to Nibiru Magic 2012 for all of his effort that he does. And as you can tell, it takes a toll on him. just as any of the watchers, whether they be a watcher over Fukushima or the sun, or it takes a toll on all of us individually. So I very much appreciate any and all watchers out there. But anyway, the link for that's down in the About tab if you want to check it out. I'm sure he's got links as usual as well. He typically always does. Now to the news that I have for you. I guess really we'll start out with the Michael Brown. I don't have a lot for you, so don't expect anything massive. However, there was another recording that has came to light. I'm going to try and catch this before it starts playing. Gotta love these websites. Maybe this one's not going to play automatically. Okay. Go ahead and go over to it. Yeah, it's rather interesting. This audio that came out. So we'll go ahead and play it. This is for your discernment. I think it says a lot. If it is truly if it wasn't doctored or anything like that, if this is truly a recording of the shooting, I think it says a lot. So let me just go ahead and play it, and we'll get on with the next story.
CNN has obtained an audio recording that could be instrumental in the Michael Brown shooting death investigation.
Anthony Kiko has that information for us this morning. He's at the command post with that recording. Anthony?
John and Randy, this audio recording allegedly captures the sound of the gunshots that killed Michael Brown on August 9th. Here's some video we shot at that shooting scene. Now, during the recording you're about to hear, you hear a Ferguson man talking during a video chat, and in the background you hear what sounds like several gunshots, a pause, and then several more gunshots. It's important to point out that we have not been able to verify its authenticity. Listen closely. Here's the recording released.
You are pretty. You're so fine. Just going over some of your videos. How could I forget?
Now, back here live, I actually want to bring in Anthony Gray, who's a Brown family attorney. Now, Mr. Gray, I know that you've heard that audio recording. What was your initial reaction when you heard it?
My initial reaction was that this is evidence that corroborates several witnesses that were at the scene that saw what happened on that day. Many of them described two distinct incidents where this officer deployed deadly force. And this audio tape seems to corroborate their versions of events. So it just seems to be another piece of evidence that supports what we learned from day one.
Now, I know the FBI is looking into this tape. What makes you believe that it is authentic?
Well, I don't know if it's authentic. All of my statements are based on the assumption that it is. If it's not authentic, then obviously it doesn't matter what we're saying about it. So, but if it is, then I think that it has some evidentiary value. Let's put it like that.
And then we know that the grand jury is considering this case right now. If it is an authentic tape, should this be introduced into evidence for the grand jury?
I think absolutely. And let me just tell you, I have all the confidence in the world that the grand jury is going to follow the presentation of evidence that the prosecutor puts before it. If the prosecutor puts this information in front of the grand jury and he deems it relevant, then the grand jury will process that information pursuant to how he interprets it. So, yeah, I think this will be relevant depending on how he's presenting the case.
And then just how closely are your attorneys paying attention to the investigation into whether this is an authentic tape?
Well, we're paying very close attention to it. When it first broke last night, we were all on a conference call kind of studying the grouping of the shots and how fast, the succession of those shots. So we're looking at it very closely, as I would imagine everybody that has any investigatory responsibility is doing the same thing at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Gray. There's more information on this on our website at fox2now.com. Again, we want to point out that we have not been able to verify the authenticity of this tape, but if it is correct, obviously some key information related to this shooting. Back to you.
Yeah, it originated with local Blumenthal, a law firm in Hazelwood, who's representing the person who reportedly recorded this. We've got a contact in there, and we have not heard back at this point, though.
All right.
Interesting, very interesting. Again, that's for your own discernment. It's pretty obvious if there was a pause in between two sets of gunshots. It sounds to me like there was definitely more to it than just self-defense. But again, that's for everyone's discernment. I'm not one of those that's taking sides in this football game, so to speak, like everybody else is. I just I don't think that's appropriate. I've got another video for you. Get it out of the way. I thought this was rather interesting. The MTV admits that the VMA Illuminati rituals were pre-planned. This is a story by Mark Dice, and apparently it's right on the MTV website. It's not like they're really trying to hide it or anything else. I will say before I play this video that I had talked about, say a month or so ago, when the video came out for Weird Al Yankovic, his parody of Royals called Foil. I was a bit concerned with it, with the way it went. And then shortly after that, I seen on social media that there was supposedly a big push on social media for that particular, for Weird Al Yankovic to perform, I believe it is, at halftime at the Super Bowl. And I just think it's really interesting how much they are pushing it in our face, whether it be through symbolism or whether it just be the name itself or whatever the case is. They are really, really pushing this, and it's interesting. And again, I will revert back to the Weird Al Yankovic video and the lyrics itself, and I believe they speak for themselves. I like to wear a tinfoil hat, I admit it, but hey, when something's obvious, it's obvious, and when it's being purposely put in our faces, we shouldn't ignore it. And I think it's very clear at this point that that's what's going on. So I'll play Mark Dice's video. It's something else to use your own discernment on, but it's kind of one of those things to where at this point, if you don't understand it or believe it, your head's in the sand, especially when they come right out on the MTV website and say it themselves. So here's Mark Dice and his video on the subject.
MTV admits that the 2014 VMAs were one big Illuminati ritual. I'm not joking. This is actually an article from MTV.com. Quote, did the Illuminati control last night's VMAs? Yes. I'm not going to break down the ceremony. Again, go and check some of my previous videos if you want to see the 666 stage, the big Illuminati pyramid that kicked off the show, the Ariana Grande and Miley Virus's Kabbalah occult bracelets, the Anaconda serpent worship, the Beyonce feminist infomercial. But let's talk about why this is happening. How is it that MTV is just having an article exposing the Illuminati ritual themselves? It's called the externalization of the hierarchy. It's because we're in the final phases of the New World Order, when the elite are getting ready to reveal the secret, the royal secret, which is the world religion of Satanism, as they've been paving the path for the counterfeit Christ, the Antichrist, to come on the stage. A little-known occult book, I mean, kind of known in the Resistance, but outside of this, nobody knows about this book, called The Externalization of the Hierarchy, written by an occultist, Alice Bailey, about 100 years ago, details this externalization of the hierarchy. I'm going to read you some of these quotes, but many people for hundreds of years have been warning about this exact scenario. My book, The Illuminati Facts and Fiction, came out in 2009. The Resistance Manifesto, about 10 years ago, in 2005. I mean, back in 1983, Anthony Sutton released America's Secret Establishment, covering all about the Bilderberg Group and the Skull and Bones Society and the plan for the New World Order taking over the education system and the media, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, back in 1974, and I own all these books, by the way. You can get mine, of course, on Amazon.com or download them right now into any e-reader. In 1974, Bohemian Grove and Other Retreats came out by William Domhoff, a sociologist who exposed the Bohemian Grove. I mean, 2 years before that, 1972, None Dare Call It Conspiracy came out. Democracy, 1924, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. 1803, Seth Payson released Proof of the Illuminati. 1798 we have John Robeson publishing the proofs of a conspiracy in the original Illuminati writings. Don't forget Jim Tucker's 2005 Bilderberg Diary. But back to the externalization of the hierarchy. I'm going to read to you a couple quotes from this book. Essentially, they're using these celebrities to promote Satanism as cool, as the new world religion is getting ready to be announced. The royal secret, as they've said. Quote, esoterically speaking, a point of contact, a moment of spiritual intercourse is imminent, and out of that moment, a new world can be born. If the spiritual contact can be brought about, it means that the hierarchy will no longer be hidden and unknown, but it will be recognized as present upon the physical plane. Increasingly, the new group of world servers will be active in every nation and found functioning throughout the entire world. That's on page 21 of the externalization of the hierarchy. On page 107, it actually says that Lucifer is going to be the ruler of planet Earth when the hierarchy's plans are completed. Okay, that's right. On page 409, it says, quote, it has therefore become possible to synchronize the approach of the divine to the human and instruct the masses of men in the technique of thus invoking the approach. This attitude of humanity will lead us to a new revelation, to the new world religion, and to the new attitudes of religion of man to God and of man to man. See, they're getting ready to announce this. I mean, it's pretty much out in the open right now. I mean, Christians are all but targeted for termination. In fact, listen to this. Page 417, quote, this is one of the favorite books of the Skull and Bones. I mean, this book is in the Skull and Bones tomb library. This is mandatory reading for the Illuminati members. But the truth leaks out. That's why I've assembled it in my book, The Illuminati Facts and Fiction, to help separate the facts and fiction, because the water, even back then, 10 years ago, when I wrote the Resistance Manifesto, there's so many half-truths, misinformation, false turns, but now the water's so muddy, just most people just have no idea. I mean, it's a full-time job to sift through it and to find kernels of the truth, which I've done. Again, you can get that book right now. Quote, the fact of the existence of the hierarchy is consciously recognized by hundreds of thousands today, but still denied by the Orthodox. The general public are familiar with the idea of the existence of the masters and either gullibly accept the mass of futile and idiotic information handed out or fight furiously against the spread of this teaching. What they're talking about there is we're ridiculing the supposed royal truth, and they're calling us the furious idiots who are denouncing this. Quote, so many know the truth today, so many people of integrity and worth are cooperating consciously with the members of this hierarchy that the very foundations are concrete-minded, etc., etc. It talks about infiltrating the churches and all this stuff, but that's why we're seeing this spread. I've covered how this happened through social media, through whitewashes like Dan Brown's Angels and Demons book, the author who also wrote the Da Vinci Code, right, just whitewashes the Illuminati. And then in 2009, that film came out, and social media was about getting pretty popular then, Facebook and Twitter, 2010. And so everybody now knows, or thinks they know, at least has heard about the Illuminati. But, I mean, just a fraction of a percent really have more than 2 or 3 basic facts, right? And so that's why we have today, I mean, MTV.com, literally just posting an article. Hey, we're going to break it down. We're breaking down all the clues and symbols of last night's show. Yeah, a bunch of demonic dirtbag, occult practicing, Baphomet worshiping bimbos. It's fantastic. But, of course, they're being promoted as the new priestesses, revealing the divine secret to success. And the vast majority of the public will just get in line for it. Just suck it up. The soda slurping psychos slurp up whatever kind of pop culture piss is put in front of them. So I'm trying to do my best to alert everybody to this garbage. So check out some of my books. They're a lot more serious, a lot more in-depth than my videos. You just can't articulate off the top of my head what you can do in a book. You don't just write a book. You write it and rewrite it and rewrite it and expand it and polish it and fact-check it and cross-reference it, etc., etc. So, but the videos can't even do anywhere close to the amount of justice of the information that are found in the books. So, thanks for watching. Stand strong. Resist this invasion, this just new pop culture promotion of the new world order, global religion. Looks like it's getting ready to be rolled out. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new. Check out the previous videos. There's playlists, and stay tuned. There's more videos coming soon.
Thanks to Mark Dice for that video. The link is down in the About tab. Rick Wiles of True News had an announcement today on his show. He's going to be starting the next part of his mission. And I would urge you. I'm not even going to try and paraphrase. I would urge you to listen to Rick Wiles' show from today. And it's really obvious, especially with the tension, especially with different moves that different individuals and or watchers or whatever you want to call them. Different people are making different moves today, and I think it's a pretty good indicator of the elite going into their next steps. And I know it sounds like it's all crazy stuff and all that, and if it's something that you have not followed over a period of time, and you just get slapped in the face with it, it's like, well, you're just crazy, you're just nuts, you know. I don't know. I mean, Mark Dice did a pretty good job of explaining it, and there's really not much more I can add. I mean, if you don't, if it's not something that you followed for a while, it's just going to seem really, really weird. But I can't change that. I can't change the truth. Neither can you. So about the only thing I could recommend for people is to catch up, learn what's going on, because it's going to affect you soon enough. I don't think it's going to be much longer. So let's go ahead and get on with the other news. We're going to talk about Ebola for a moment. We shall start out here. Okay, alarm grows as Ebola outbreak spurs more flight cancellations, border closures. Tamar Frieden, director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, was supposed to fly to West Africa on Monday to gauge the efforts of the worst Ebola outbreak. Then his flight was canceled. Brussels Airlines was forced to halt flights to the affected region after Senegal's refusal over the weekend to allow the Belgium-based carrier to touch down in Senegal's capital, Dakar, for crew changes. Senegal was sending a clear signal that it wanted nothing to do with flights going to Liberia, Guinea, or Sierra Leone, where the outbreak rages on. This move was just the latest by a growing wave of countries and airlines that appear to want to stave off the Ebola threat by stopping travel in and out of places confronting the virus. Frieden, along with other U.S. officials, scrambled to jump on one of the region's few remaining options, a Delta flight to the Liberian capital that arrived Sunday, said Jeremy, director of the U.S. Agency for International Development Office for Foreign Disaster Assistance, who was part of the mad dash. The increasing flight cancellations and border closures have alarmed public health officials worldwide. The cancellations have frightened residents in the affected countries who fear they may be trapped within their national borders. They also worry about the economic fallout from their dwindling air access to other countries. The World Health Organization warned Monday that these curbs will only make the outbreak harder to deal with. The message was reinforced by United Nations, which said moving in medical supplies and personnel was being severely hampered by the restrictions. David Nabarro, who is leading WHO's Ebola response effort, acknowledged Monday that the unprecedented scale of outbreak is scary, but stressed the importance of maintaining regular air routes and normal borders. Yes, we understand it, Nabarro said in Freetown, referring to the restrictions placed by regional countries. But on the other hand, it's making the job a whole lot harder. Kiji Bakuda, who's assistant director, I need to learn these names, I know, who's Assistant Director General for Health Security, said it was essential to restore the confidence of the airlines and foreign governments. Passengers are screened for fever and other symptoms before boarding the planes in the Ebola-affected countries. And even if a Ebola-stricken passenger found a seat on an aircraft, transmissions of the virus, which is not airborne, here we go again, and which requires direct contact with bodily fluids, is difficult. So I'm going to stop right there for a moment. And I want to address that paragraph. Number one, as far as we know, This thing has an incubation period of 21 days. I'm not buying that on day 1, day 2, day 3, I'm not buying that you're going to have a fever of any amount that they're going to detect and say, you can't get on the plane. I'm not buying that. Sorry, just not buying that. Number 2, I still don't buy that you have to be in direct contact with bodily fluids. I do believe it's airborne. There are many others that believe it's airborne. And there's something I want to point out. When the SARS virus was making its rounds, boy, they went nuts closing stuff down. They really went nuts closing stuff down. This time, a much more dangerous disease, and they're like, we got to get stuff in and out. Okay, so I agree. They need to get supplies in and out, personnel in and out, whatnot. But why are we doing this with regular airlines? Why aren't we doing this with either like Red Cross aircraft or military aircraft or something of the sort? It makes no sense to me why we were doing this with regular commercial airlines. It just does not make any sense. It's almost like they're trying to get it to spread. It really does seem that way, and I'm not the only one that believes that. Let's go ahead and go on to the next story about Ebola. As soon as it loads up. Links for all these are in the About tab. WHO, Ebola outbreak underestimated. The magnitude of the Ebola outbreak has been underestimated because families hide infected relatives in their homes. The World Health Organization says, because Ebola has no cure, some people are infected with the virus preferred to die at home, the WHO said on Friday in a statement. This was especially the case in Liberia and Sierra Leone, where stigma and social rejection related to Ebola are massive. Some West Africans continue to deny Ebola exists, while others believe isolation's wards are incubators of the disease, according to the WHO. Excuse me. In addition, Ebola-affected countries lacked off supplies and equipment, including personnel, protective equipment, the WHO said. Hospital and diagnostic capacities in the region have been overwhelmed. Numerous treatment centers and clinics had closed because medical staff had fled out of fear of being infected. In Liberia's capital, Monrovia, and other areas, virtually all health services had shut down, the WHO said. New treatment facilities immediately fill with patients, which suggests that many more people have symptoms than are being detected by health workers, according to the WHO. In Monrovia, an Ebola treatment center with 20 beds, which opened last week, was immediately overwhelmed with more than 70 patients, the WHO said. There were also shadow zones, the WHO said, villages where residents resist health workers' investigations or that cannot be accessed due to lack of staff and vehicles. Many rural villages continued to bury corpses without notifying health officials. Senegal on Friday became the latest African country to restrict travel as a result of the Ebola outbreak, closing its borders to neighboring Guinea. This measure also applies to air and maritime borders, to planes and ships coming in from Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Interior Minister, I'm not even trying that name, was quoted by the Senegalese press agency as saying many African countries have restricted air, land, and water travel in the region, causing a significant impact on the economy and food security, according to the World Food Program. Senegal's decision comes shortly after South Africa issued a travel ban for non-citizens arriving from Ebola-hit countries. In West Africa, 1,350 people have died from the outbreak so far, according to the WHO, and 2,473 suspected or confirmed cases have been reported in the region. Ebola causes massive hemorrhaging and has a fatality rate of up to 90%. It is transmitted through contact with blood and other bodily fluids. Here we go again. I love how they just keep driving that home, don't you? Direct contact, direct contact. All right, well, I've had enough of Ebola, but I'll tell you what, I think that's going to come back and haunt us. That's why I do cover stories on it. I think it's kind of important. On to the next comic book, I reckon. I suppose. Pentagon considers options against ISIS targets in Syria. And we've got a video. As soon as it decides to play, that is.
Syria said today it is willing to cooperate with the United States to put down the Sunni Muslim terrorist group known as ISIS. But the foreign minister warned against any attacks against ISIS targets in Syria without Syrian permission. President Obama has made no decision on that, but David Martin tells us the U.S. military will be ready.
The Pentagon has begun planning for airstrikes using both manned and unmanned aircraft to attack ISIS targets inside Syria. The strikes would be designed to disrupt ISIS operations and kill its senior leaders. Current airstrikes have been limited to ISIS forces in Iraq that threaten either American facilities in the city of Baghdad and Erbil or large segments of the Iraqi population, such as the Yazidi religious minority. Those strikes have stalled the ISIS advance across northern Iraq, but left its center of power in Syria untouched. Over the weekend, ISIS captured a Syrian Air Force base, solidifying its hold on the entire province surrounding the city of Raqqa. The area is far from the capital of Damascus, and as a result, Pentagon planners do not believe Syrian air defenses would pose a significant threat to American warplanes. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, said Sunday there is no evidence ISIS is actively plotting to attack the U.S. or Europe. And intelligence analysts do not believe ISIS has the ability to conduct a 9/11 scale attack. But ISIS has already executed one American, the journalist James Foley, and has dozens of U.S. citizens in its ranks who are a threat to return to the States to carry out lone wolf attacks. Whatever President Obama decides, airstrikes alone will not defeat ISIS. This is just the beginning of what could be another very long war. Maurice?
David Martin at the Pentagon.
See, they are going to find any reason whatsoever, any excuse they can to go into Syria. I mean, of course, as you know, not that long ago, they were using chemical weapons, or, you know, now ISIS is in there. They're begging to get into Syria. And this time they're probably going to get the support of others. And I hope Syria holds up to what they say, but I have a feeling this is the same situation as any other situation when it comes to drones or anything like that. Obama plays king of the world, and that's pretty much the way it is. So keep your eyes open on that. That's all I can say. Keep your eyes open. And for the next story, U.S.-Chinese officials to meet at Pentagon after jet intercept. Story from Reuters, links down in the About tab. U.S. and Chinese military officials will hold talks on rules of behavior at the Pentagon on Wednesday and Thursday, a U.S. official said. Days after the United States denounced a dangerous Chinese jet intercept of a U.S. Navy patrol plane. Last Tuesday, a Chinese fighter pilot flew acrobatic maneuvers around the U.S. Navy's P-8 Poseidon anti-submarine and reconnaissance plane, crossing over and under it in international airspace over the South China Sea, the Pentagon said. If you can't tell, I find this a bit humorous. At one point, the jet flew wingtip to wingtip about 10 yards from the Poseidon, then performed a barrel roll over top of it. The U.S. defense official said other close intercepts occurred in March, April, and May. While this week's discussions at the Pentagon were planned long before the recent incidents, they touch on issues at the core of the U.S. concerns about Chinese military behavior, that a Chinese provocation could spiral into a broader crisis sparked by military miscalculation in the disputed territory. In other words, a U.S. pilot might get butthurt and fire at him, right? Chinese sovereignty claims over the strategic stretch of mineral-rich water over its southern coast into the east of the mainland, Southeast Asia, set it directly against U.S. allies Vietnam and the Philippines, while Brunei, Taiwan, and Malaysia also lay claim to parts of the disputed areas. So basically, that's pretty much what this is about. They're in international waters. Hey, it's fair game. As long as the Chinese pilot don't fire on the American pilot, then I really don't understand what the what the beef is. I mean, they're just showing off. That's all it is. I don't know. Not something I would really be, freaking out about. But, and then in the whole play of things as it is, they're just all puppets. The countries are just puppets. It really doesn't matter. I mean, like I say, it's some pilot out there playing Top Gun. That's probably about the most of it, really. Next story. Hypersonic weapon explodes seconds into test. I've covered some stories about hypersonic weapons in the past, and just a quick little story. A hypersonic weapon being developed by the U.S. military was destroyed 4 seconds after launch following a malfunction, the Pentagon has said. Controllers aborted the test after detecting a problem as a rocket carried the weapon from a test range in Alaska, the Department of Defense said. Witnesses said they saw the rocket lift off, then explode. The advanced hypersonic weapon is designed to travel at 5 times the speed of sound and destroy targets anywhere in the world within an hour of launch. The glider-type craft will soar almost into space before diving into the atmosphere to its target. It is envisaged. Wow, big word, huh? Wow. I'll have to look that up. Google. Pentagon spokesman Maureen Schumann said no one was hurt in the launch at the Kodiak launch complex. We had to terminate less than 4 seconds after takeoff, she told Sky News. Ms. Schumann said military officials were investigating the cause of the failure. The system, which had no warhead, was supposed to fly to the Kyrgyzstan Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. The previous launch of the weapon from Hawaii in November 2011 was deemed successful, said the military. The craft is being developed by the U.S. Army and a subsidiary of defense contractor Lockheed Martin as part of the Prompt Global Strike program. The term hypersonic is defined by exceeding Mach 5, 5 times the speed of sound, or 3,700 miles per hour. By the way, Prompt Global Strike program, yeah, that pretty much means first strike capability is what they want. They want first strike capability. They want to be able to strike before anybody else has the ability to launch. And, here we go again. I mean, we're going to wind up, we're just going to wind up in a bad situation. I don't understand. At some point, you would think people of the world would stand up in all the countries, especially with the internet now, people can talk to one another. You would think the people of the world would stand up and say, enough. We don't want to fight these people. We just all want to live. That's all. We just want to live. But, as long as we got governments and then, otherwise known as puppets, and then the puppet masters controlling them, we'll never reach that. And if we go to try and reach that, then it's, going to get shut down. One more story for you. China's new satellite is said to spot pot fields and smuggler routes. China has poured billions of dollars into building its nationwide surveillance network. By one 2013 estimate, the country had 30 million surveillance cameras in parks, on highways, and even in taxis. Now, there's one more very powerful eye in the sky allowing authorities to keep tabs on things. The Gaofen 1 satellite, which is capturing high-resolution images from 300 miles above the Earth. Analysis of images captured by Gaofen 1 have enabled Chinese police to locate fields of opium poppy and marijuana in northern China and uncover dozens of routes used by smugglers at the border with North Korea and along the frontier of the restive Zhejiang region, the official New China news agency reported on Monday. Maybe I can't talk today. Chinese scientists definitely did research before utilizing satellite images to fight crimes. Zi Tao, a professor who specializes satellite imagery at Zhejiang University of Science and Technology, said in an interview. But now, thanks to the high-resolution images provided by Gaofen 1, they are finally confident enough to announce the results to the public. Gaofen 1 was launched in April 2013 and formally put into service in December. During the first few months of testing after its launch, the satellite, whose name means high resolution, provided data on earthquakes, floods and smog in China. The cameras were capable of capturing objects as small as a bicycle, the news agency said. And I'm just going to stop right there because I call bogus, because this is China we're talking about here. All the major countries have satellites that can show you real-time video, and let's just say that you could put a dime on the ground and they could tell you the date or the year on that dime with real-time video. Okay, so I don't even understand why they would release a story like this, because it, I believe the dinosaurs had this technology, but I'm not positive. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to you. I thought it was a little interesting article, especially because of how far back they I mean, come on, a bicycle? Give me a break. Really? No. I just thought it's propaganda. That's what it is. I thought it was very interesting propaganda. So anyway, that's what I've got for you tonight. Pretty wild news. Hopefully I'll have something interesting, something we really haven't covered tomorrow night. But that's what I have for you tonight. May God bless you. May He walk with you. Be one with your spirit. I love you all very much. Hang in there. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Just hang in there till it gets better. All right. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow.